What is up, profitable stylist? Here we go this week.
We're
Get
talking
your
about hair.
notebooks out, get your pens ready, get your Scantrons. We are taking
What's the
it's a history
Scantron?
lesson today.
Yeah, it's a little educational. We're talking about where hair came from. God,
The
where did hair come from?
origins of hair.
The evolution of hair, what it means, why do we have it? I think we were just got off of Facebook. I have to say for the people that might have followed us from Facebook, we pick up where we left off and then we go back to the beginning if we need to. But we're just talking about like how hair defines who not just individuals are, but whole groups, cultures, countries, religions. I mean, it's crazy how much hair says who a person is, right?
Mhm.
I mean, my wife and I are watching this series. It's an older series. You ever heard of it called The Mentalist?
I've
And
heard of it, but I have not seen it.
it's funny because the guy is he's a helper on a CBI, I don't know, a police force kind of thing, but he's just a consultant. But his past life of his job was I don't even know what that word is, but where you talk to people's dead loved ones. And he
Oh, a
says,
medium, right? Like a
yeah,
psychic
he
medium
was a
type thing.
medium. Now, so in the show, he's a little bit more like Sherlock Holmes, is why we like to watch the show,
Oh, okay.
because he comes out of that life and says, I was faking it. That's not even real or true, but I can read people so well that I can kind of tell what they're thinking, where there's all this almost like reading their mind. And so now he's helping on the police force because somebody killed his family. That's a long story, but anyway, he's helping on the police force now. And so when they show up on a murder scene, he can just read everything about their life. And it's crazy how often the haircut, the way that a person wore their hair, says a little bit about who they were. But he goes further. He can tell from the clothes, the skin, the length of the hair, the
Sure, sure.
trinkets they've got, where they're at. So to me, it's almost like we're all a little bit Sherlock Holmesy when we look at people. They say don't judge a book by its cover, but we do. We judge people, and I don't know if it's good or bad, or if it's a safety thing, because we had to judge if it was good or bad to save our lives at one point in history, right? And so we are still programmed to look at people quickly and judge good, bad. Uh, do I talk to them? Do I not?
Well, you have to, it's human nature. It's psychological. You have to assess fight or flight. Is it a
Right,
threat or is it a safe?
right.
Just like when you're growing up. Oh, is the oven? Don't touch the oven. It's hot. You'll burn yourself. Well, how hot and how bad will I burn myself? Well, then mom says, well, okay, touch it and find out. But I'm telling you, don't touch it.
Yeah, some of us have to learn through experience. So, although hair goes way further back, we kind of stopped on Facebook a few minutes ago in the Profitable Stylist group with we started getting into the times you wore long hair and why. And
Oh yeah, right. In modern day, okay, so hair has a long, long history, but in modern day now, it really is still used how it was always been used throughout history. It's a way to identify whether you're part of a socioeconomic group, whether
true,
you're part of a social ideological group, whether you're part of a religious group, whether you're part of a political group, you're making a statement, you're doing a protest,
rebellion.
a rebellion. So growing up, a kid of the 80s, I wanted to be like Axl Rose. I wanted to have, I was into rock and heavy metal. And then in the 90s, I became a punk and I became rebellious and I wanted to be, anti the government, anti-system. I wanted to be an anarchist. I wanted to be an anti-conformist. And my way of becoming an anti-conformist was
To conform
to
with another
conform
group.
into looking like a punk rocker, which was mohawk, colored hair, ripped jeans, chains, the whole everything, spikes,
You wanted to be so different
that I
that
had to
you
look
were
like everybody else who wanted to be so
that
different.
that was the thing that we just kind of ended on Facebook with, was like, it's funny how no matter what you're trying to do or trying not to do, you're fitting in somewhere. You're either
And those
trying.
were the people I hung out with, was with those people that were like mine. That's how we were able to identify. That was our secret code in society to
What
say
wasn't so secret.
it wasn't so secret, right? And
Right.
unfortunately, it so then here's another one that I just thought of too. There was a time where dusters and trench coats were really popular and trending, but then and this is a sad thing, and that look kind of ended. There was the original Columbine shooting,
Mm.
in the university, and then they were labeled as the trench coat mafia. So then any kids in school that wore trench coats got automatically labeled and started getting targeted, like where are you at? And are you like part of that society group that's mental?
Right.
So everything has a connotation to it. So depending on how you want to dress and how you want to style your hair and color your hair, make sure you think that through.
Punks, mohawks, skinheads, emos, scene kids. Some of my kids were definitely seen, and I was like, what does that even?
Well, you was talking about mall chick hair
Oh,
earlier.
bangs.
Mall chick bangs,
Yeah. I remember oh, never mind. I can't talk about that.
See what I mean?
I remember
Certain social acceptances and
it's all about the hair
unacceptances.
too. Actually, I can talk about it. I remember I just wonder sometime. My wife's fine with this, so I'm going to do it. It was when I was married to my ex-wife. I remember in the first, I'll never forget it because she was so mad, but she had the wedding picture, one of the wedding pictures on the refrigerator. And as a stylist, I was always hyper aware of what's coming in and going out. And it was just in the first few years, but I looked at our wedding picture, at our hair, and my hair was too big. And I said, what are we going to look at in this picture 10, 20 years from now and say, I can't believe we did that. Dress or hair. And she says, what? She was so mad. Like I was saying, she was ugly right then, And I just went with the opposite of what we were actually doing. I said, we both have pretty big hair. I bet you flatter hair will come in style. And she goes, are you crazy? And she was so mad about it. She wears the flattest hair now. And it's like, it's just science,
Nice.
It's up and down. Big hair, flat hair, big
You
hair.
want a good one?
Yeah, go ahead.
So Carmelina is Sicilian.
Yes.
So for the wedding, and she's got the curls. She's got the tight ringlet curls. So for the wedding, she's got the curls all made up and everything. And I'm going, and I had longer hair at the time. And she goes, are you gonna comb your hair for the wedding? Or are you just gonna leave it all long? And I'm like, well, the only thing I could do is slick it back. And when I go to do that, I'm like, okay, it's a Sicilian wedding.
That would be
I look like a made man, like a mafia boy. You look like a mob wife. Like, what is happening right now, right?
You did wear it slick back?
I did. And I look back on the pictures and I'm like,
what was that?
I'm in a tux. So I totally look like something out of the 50s,
Yeah. I love slick back hair.
Oh my
I
God.
love
But I
big
mean,
curly hair.
But looking back on it, and now you look at the current trends now,
Yeah.
mob wife is a trend. And Carmelina wears like Peggy Bundy. She's got all the animal prints. I make fun of her all the time. Like
Yeah.
if the wildlife conservation preserve is ever looking for all the animals, they're in your closet. You have like every animal in your closet with all the prints,
It's not real animal skins though.
No, it's not real animal skins. I'm just saying like the
That's
cheetah print, the leopard
when you
print.
get in trouble.
Oh yeah, no. PETA, I'm not no, PETA's not going to come to my house. Everything is fake. I don't have anything, any real anything.
So I'm going to go into this next topic of, I was kind of reminded of something. Hair can be a luxury as well as a punishment, like getting rid of hair.
Isn't that something?
Yeah. When I read that, I thought, that's interesting. I don't even think we really read the part where some punishments of hair is you're in some sort of captivity and you don't get your hair cut or shaved at all. You know how we get some hostages back from some countries after they've been kept for so many years and their hair's like down to here, beard, mustache. You don't recognize them at all, eyebrows, everything. So that can be one part of the punishment, is you don't get to groom that hair at all. And then the other side of it is shaving the head. And I remember my son Bernard, he was just, I think it was 6th or 7th grade. He was just being so bad at the Catholic grammar school right across the street from my salon. And he wanted his hair bleached blonde once. I said, that's fine. We'll bleach it blonde if you want. And then we were just doing anything he wanted with his hair because we have a salon. But he was wearing it a little bit longer at the time. And I was pretty open with hair, but then I couldn't get him controlled over a few months. And one day I snapped. And usually I talk with the mom. We were divorced at the time. We would talk about haircuts because that's a big deal. But I snapped, and he was so, I think he got a detention or a suspension at school that day. And I bring him over to the salon. I said, we're shaving your head. And
no more blondes, no more little bleach tips for you, right?
I cut it so, real short. He had long, cool kid hair, you know? And I said, you know what? You can look like those bad kids if you can be a good kid. But if you're going to be a bad kid and look like a bad kid, right? For wearing longer hair, I said, we're going to start with making you look like a good kid. And that was
you mean a bad kid?
I know it almost sounds like child abuse today, but it was just a haircut. And I was just making him fit in with the good kids of the time because the haircut represented the good kids at the time, the shorter hair.
Okay.
Like, hey, you can't be a good kid. We're going to at least make you look like a good kid. And the haircut was a bit of a punishment, you know, and the mom was real mad too. So the whole family was, I mean, hey, we're not all perfect. I don't know if I'd do that again today, but it was
definitely. But for the time, that was the punishment, right? And if you look at it historically speaking.
And then I read here, you write, concentration camps shave their head. I'm like,
well, that was unfortunate because they tattooed barcodes into freaking people to keep track of them, you know, like livestock. So that was terrible. But you look at it historically, you know, that's the length of hair in some regards, it falls into different categories. It's either social, it's either religious, it's either class based, you know. So back then, long hair meant if you could have long, luxurious, shiny hair, that meant you were wealthy because most people worked out in the fields and they had dirt in their hair, debris in their hair. So to punish somebody, they would cut their hair off as an atonement or as a punishment that would show that you've done something and you have to start all over again. You have to be reborn into your next life or into a new life.
That's interesting.
Yeah. So that's some of the things with the length of hair, you know.
So in this day and time, it's tough to tell who's who.
Yes and no.
Yeah, because I mean, like, okay, well, wait till you say that then, because I like this next one where we talk about dreadlocks, the Rastafari look. It didn't start off as a cool thing. It was more of a just
that was a rebellion,
right? But it was like, I'm not going to comb my hair. I'm not going to stop. I'm just going to let it do whatever it would do naturally. And it was a bunch of uneven dreads. And then some people were like, what if I because I love a nice, neat, I like organization. So the funny thing about that is dreads, let's say what it really is, tangled, knotted hair. But if you do it where your sections are very uniform and help start the knots, it'll continue to knot more uniformly, and I enjoy it. But a true just let it go dreadlock look, it's all different sizes. You might have 4 or 5 pieces that all stick together on one side and just kind of grow out for a while because it's so tangled mess. And so it's definitely a rebellion. Like, hey, I don't need to be neat and fit in and wear a suit and a tie. I can just let it all go and I can still survive. What do you think about that? Sticking it to the man, right? And now it's a style. Also,
now it's been now it has now it's been morphed into a style. But even as a style now, you got to look at it because human nature, we tend to group up. You know, we are herd animals. There are some, I'm a solo. Yeah, some, you know, there's always going to be an exception to the rule.
Very rare.
But the majority, humans as a majority, are herd animals. We're pack animals. We like to move in groups.
Yep.
So even when you look at dreads nowadays, are you got the Jamaican dreads? You got the African dreads? You know, what tribe does that represent? And the significance of that and the importance of that also had to do a lot with warfare as well. You know, it had to do with it. It showed what your rank was. It showed what your area was. You know, like what town you came from, for example, or what village you belong to. So even in nowadays, depending on how you get whatever hairstyle you get, we're just happen to be talking about dreads right now. You know, even that would show the difference of what your core belief is, or to what effect what your preference, what your hobby preference or lifestyle preference belongs or fits into.
I like watching some fighting videos. They'll just pop up on my feed, and it's a crazy how the Shaolin monks, or I don't know if I'm saying that word
Oh,
right.
Shaolin, yeah, Shaolin monks.
They all had their head shaved. So I always think I'm seeing the same one fight, because they're amazing fighters. And just the head shave situation, is it that's more of a religious thing, right?
That's for a religious thing, and then usually they would keep a little patch of hair in the back, whether it was the big, like a big patch in the back or a small patch.
Well, there's also the religion that has a little patch on the top.
The top knot, yeah. So depending on where that was, basically that designated which dynasty or which emperor you served or which religious god you believed in to a certain effect. But for the most part, they all braided their hair to a certain way, and they all accessorized those braids in a certain way as well too, to be able to annotate and show, where they were at and everything. So there was where
Who
was
to
it?
slice and not slice with your sword
Say
in
that
battle?
again.
So you would know who to stab or not stab with your sword.
This is exactly, yeah.
Part of the uniform also, right?
And then when you would be cast out, they would cut that braid off. And they cut your hair off, and that means you were rejected from that sect. You no longer
so
belong
long
to
to
that.
grow. It was something you could come back from, but it took time. I think that's what's fascinating about cutting a person's hair. In the hair extension world, we hear a lot about the Indian temple hair, how and where it comes from. And I don't know the religion very well, but apparently in India, one of the fresh starts or new starts or being forgiven of all your sins starts with a clean shaven head. And so the church gets all that hair, and so they make good use of it. I don't think it's a misappropriation of the hair at all. I know there's a lot of argument out there of
right.
I don't know. I don't really understand how it could be misappropriated. The people don't know. I don't think they care what happens to the hair, actually. But I don't think they're holding people down and shaving their heads. It's right. That's when it would be wrong. So this whole thing of that's some of the unethically sourced hair, if it comes from the Indian temple, I don't agree with that at all. People are just looking for people to blame in so many areas these days with the woke culture. It's like, got to find something wrong with a group for whatever reason. The Indian temple hair, I think, is a great, I don't know. I think it's a great use of the hair, because
let me ask you this way.
What if you just throw it away? Is that a better use? Throw it away.
In Western culture, in our culture, we have born again Christianity.
Yep.
Whatever your belief is your belief, right? So you're shedding your past completely. And in some cases, in the born agains, they give away, or they throw out, or they donate and give away all of their past possessions and belongings.
That's a good point.
So it's the equivalency. So in the temple, that's the equivalency. They're physically shedding their physical possessions and starting a new life. They're being born again. So that hair literally becomes the economy for some of these villages out there. They sell that hair to survive. So it's an equivalent exchange. And I talk about the concept and idea of equivalent exchange. We talked about that last week with marketing and profitability. Yes. As long as everybody is consenting to and agreeing upon the trade for the goods and services, there's it at that point becomes an opinion. It's not an ethical, scenario anymore, is the way I look at it.
And then because hair is so important, good or bad, some cultures completely cover their head and not allowed to show their hair. Now
True.
we covered a lot of cultures in that happen to be in India, but you know what else? Other religions, Catholic nuns. Catholic nuns. I grew up in a Catholic school, kindergarten through 8th grade, and we had some nuns as teachers. And I found it interesting that some nuns covered all of their hair with their, I think they call it a habit, the thing they wear over their head. And some nuns had to show a little bit of hair in the front. And so it was like a little bit of hair would show out, and then they covered everything else. And I always thought it was fascinating, like why all the hair is covered, why some of the hair is showing. What is the significance of this?
So I don't fully understand it, so I'm not going to try to speak specifically to it. But growing up, I grew up Orthodox Christian, and
Okay.
when we would go to church, they would have, and I don't know what the right word is called, but it was a cover up. It looked like a doily that my great grandma used to knit, for the lamps. My
I'm
mom,
impressed that you knew the name of it, a doily.
no, it's not called at the church.
Well,
It wasn't
no.
called
I
a
mean, the
doily.
thing that your grandma made. My grandma made them too, and most people don't know what they're called. But
Yeah. That's the only thing I could tell you is what it looked like.
yeah,
Was
yeah,
yeah,
yeah.
yeah. That right. So my mom would put that on her head, and then she'd
Mhm.
put it on my little sister. But my brother and I wouldn't have to wear that, and I thought it looked cool. So I'm like, Ma, I want one of those. She goes, you're a boy, you don't wear that. And I'm like, well, why do girls get to wear that? She goes,
Right,
we have to be presentable in the eyes of God. I go, I don't even understand what is that. Again, I'm a little kid back then, so that
right.
went right over my head.
Yeah, still for me, and I'm not that little anymore.
Well,
I still don't get it.
but so it had to do with some kind of your relationship with a higher power, and the belief that you're giving yourself to a higher power, to a higher purpose, and that you shouldn't show that to everybody. That's a very intimate thing that is only behind closed door, and your relationship with your higher power, in this case with God, right?
Right.
So in public, it would be common practice to be covered up, so you shouldn't be seen by other people, because you shouldn't be openly intimate with other people. You should only be intimate, with your personal self, with indoors.
Thank you for the religious lesson. Let's move on.
Yeah. That's as loosely as I can explain it, as I understand it.
Yeah, I'm just messing with you. We'll do religion next week. Uh, right, the two things they tell us to stay away as hairdressers: religion and politics.
And we're going to hit politics pretty soon now.
Well, I almost did, because I was about to hit religion and politics all at the same time and say one of the more popular speakers in the world right now, Ben Shapiro. Not only is he highly political, but highly religious, because he wears this thing on the back of his head.
Oh, the yarmulke. He's got the yarmulke
I
on
didn't
his
know
head.
what it was
Yeah.
called. And I didn't notice it for the longest time when you'd see him in interviews, but because his hair's dark and the thing he wears is dark. But then I started to notice it, and I thought, that's kind of nice that he's that open and honest with his beliefs and faiths, that he's a pretty high public figure and wears it. Because not all Jewish people, because we know some Jewish people that don't wear it all the time, and some
Well,
do.
and then
And
there's
I
different
wonder,
levels. Yeah.
yeah, I wonder why. What's the reason? What's the level? Is he? So let's do this real quick. Let's pop back to the very beginning, and then we're going to go into color, because
Okay.
they both are way back in history. So early in modern China, we kind of covered some of these things. People wore different kinds of hair to be part of their uniform, what group they were fighting with. They would shave their head during the English Civil War. I thought that was interesting. They cut their hair off, because a big thing was the aristocrats would wear, whether it was their real hair or it was a wig,
Or a
they
wig.
had curls. And so the rebellion was cut off all the hair, so there's no curls. We don't want curls. They got known as the roundheads. And
Roundheads.
then we didn't cover this here, but did we cover the bob here? Or we did
Not
that on
here.
Facebook?
So the bob and the term bobby pin.
love
is
that.
interesting,
I
right?
learned that from Nicholas French. You know
I
that?
learned that from Nicholas French as well. Yeah.
Yeah. So girls wanted to help out in war. And so,
Historically, women weren't allowed to fight. Yeah.
which really confused me for a minute because I just always thought I knew that the bob was a girl's haircut. And then when you start to learn the history of it, it's like, oh, well, it's got a boy name, first of all. So it must have been named after a boy or in general, men or boys. And so that was how guys cut their hair. Like you said, they would have the helmet or a bowl or something to, get it on straight and then cut right at the bottom of the helmet for
Yeah.
length,
The
right?
soldiers were referred to as bobbies.
See, I didn't know that till today.
So
So,
that's where that bob haircut was to look
and girls
uniform.
had long hair. So if a girl wanted to
Yeah.
look like a guy to fake and they would push their breasts down, wear tight clothes
And
up
tape it
here,
down. Yeah.
hold their shirt tight, fold their hair under, they made the pins back then. So that's kind of where the bobby pin, little pieces of wire bent in half, and they would hold their hair folded under because they're way better at styling hair than we ever were. And they would fold their hair under and make it look like it was short,
They'd pin it up.
pin it up underneath, and they would look, and so they would create a man looking haircut so they could go to war, but then they could let their hair down later. So it was like the ultimate spy. Or a boy, right?
And
So I
that's the
thought,
origin of the bobby pin. That's why a
man,
bobby pin is called really wild.
yeah, you froze there. Your face is still frozen. It's back. So I think that might be the the original spies also, but that's just a guess for me. So anyway, what's funny is girls wanted to look like boys to go to war, but then you get into the flapper generation where girls were wearing short hair in rebellion to, I don't know, some sort of women's movement, right?
That was the beginning of the women's movement was in the 1920s, and that's where the modern day expression now that we hear a lot in politics, we're fighting the patriarchy.
Yeah,
That's what that whole thing got started from. Was women historically had to have long hair and they had to have full length gowns or dresses, and what they started doing was aw,
he just come
they
put his head
started
on my lap.
showing, more skin. They cut their hair off. That was the flapper dress was material that was put in certain ways that it would show and draw attention to their bodies and to their skin. And then the hair being cut into that shorter length was a direct protest to having that typical look that you should have long hair and you should have a full dress and look like a housewife or look like a proper lady or whatever,
Right.
and
Whatever a proper lady was.
whatever a proper lady was at that time. So this was, the flappers were considered very, very rebellious because they were smoking cigarettes out in public, just like only men would smoke. They had the shorter hairstyle, so they got confused from behind as a guy. They couldn't just tell that was a girl immediately.
Right.
They would wear the short dresses and they would dance and be um, noble or fresh acting, out in public. They wouldn't be conservative out in public. So it was, man. I mean, if you look at the whole connotations of everything involved, it really was an amazing way of fighting against, a core belief of a society without being loud and screaming and being violent or anything like that. It was just a unified front of
Physical, right? The physical appearance.
the physical appearance of this is what we're doing and this is how we're going to act, and like it or take it or leave it. This is our response. This is how we're responding. It was a very bold statement and a very intelligent way of putting that together. I admire that. I admire that original protest.
I find it fascinating where hair color got started. And you being more of a colorist probably have more details than I've ever known. But I thought it was interesting when they've I guess the best history preservation we have was the Egyptian tombs, right? So we think Egyptians were the first, but it might go even further back, but not preserved as well. But the Egyptians did such a good job of preserving that when we unwrapped those mummies, they were still pretty lifelike looking. And I know, I think it's Cleopatra. You see the gold image of her and her hair looking like this, and they have blue in the gold, and people didn't realize for a long time that that was part of them recreating what her hair looked like. You know, they had blue streaks in her hair.
Yeah.
Go
Yeah.
ahead. I know
Cleopatra is the first recorded. So coloring started before her time.
Yeah.
But Cleopatra is considered to be the first recorded historical record of somebody popularizing coloring their hair with maintaining colored hair.
Ah, okay.
So because she was the empress of the time, she was she is known for looking very youthful and very powerful and being adored and worshipped, right? So in all of that, they used henna. In Egypt back then, they used henna. And in that soil, it had a ashy tone to it. And she would stain her hair jet black. And jet black, because the primary color is blue in that dark of a color, had that hue because it was such a stain onto the hair.
Okay.
So that's where those highlights come from, because depending on how the light reflected could show off a blue tone or a blue hue throughout that hair. So she popularized that, and it was in essence to make herself look vibrant, make herself look shiny, and to cover gray hair. So this way she would never look like an old lady. She would always look like a youthful appearance of a proper empress, you know. So she was unchanging, unfazing, unyielding to anybody and even time itself.
And we're talking about hair color in a fashionable way, but hair color was also, I find interesting, used in war. And we know this from a more modern, I say more modern, but still the beginning of this country, a more modern fight with the American Indians. Wartime with the American Indians, they wouldn't only like paint their face black, white, red stripe, whatever, but that color would go into their hair also many times. And it was a fear thing, because I'm sure the white man coming across the country, like, wow, what is this animal that looks like a human? You know, it was very scary, I'm sure. And so that probably didn't just start when we came over here, but our worlds were so divided for so long before we could get across the ocean. I'm sure that went back. I mean, Indians fighting each other did the same thing, probably painted. And so I love that you differentiated the maintenance of hair color, because that was more like a wartime thing. It was temporary. It was a little here, a little there, maybe for fun, maybe for rituals, but maintaining it for a consistent look is a real good differentiator. That
Cleopatra was considered the first recorded history of that. Ancient Rome actually is the one that popularized maintaining your hair to look in a certain way, because they used henna, but they actually popularized using plants and different extracts from different fruits and stuff like that to lighten their hair and stain their hair in different colors. And that was used to designate certain jobs and certain classifications of society as well. For example, prostitution, they were required to have lightened color hair, especially in the blondes. So, and if they couldn't lighten it, then they had to wear wigs, and that's how they were designated that they were prostitutes. That's where the expression "blondes have more fun" probably originated from.
You think they were having fun? It's just a job.
Well,
all jobs get boring.
Well, and then just like redheads, you know, like the stereotypes of redheads where they'll suck your soul, it's because redheads are a genetic mutation. It's not something that's regularly occurring in nature. So it was such a weird off thing for the time, you know, that people were like, "Oh, this is the devil's work." A lot redheads were confused as witchcraft, as witches, and they were hunted. They were
until 1558, when Queen Elizabeth, took the throne. Then it was,
right.
so just a
Are you
few
going to
years
deep?
back, it was normalized.
It's
It's
so
okay to be a
wild.
redhead now. There's a redheaded queen. They're okay.
Then now redheads are okay. Not only are they okay, now they're sexy because now you got that fiery redhead, you know, and it became such a symbol of desire.
All right, Eddie. I know you don't speak English well, but can you say that long word that's in hair color now that we just call PPD?
Oh yes, actually, I do know how to pronounce that one,
I figured because you're a science nerd. Go.
but my accent doesn't help me say it properly.
Lay down, Casper.
But the word PPD, every letter is an initial for the word, so it's paraphenyl diamine.
Oh, diamine. Okay.
Yeah.
Para.
Okay, you could say it better than I can.
Paraphenyl diamine. That helps
That's how
me
you
just
say
by
it.
you saying, okay. Yeah. So what is it?
That was actually a mistake. That the science. Oh, who was the scientist on that one? He was trying to discover the cure for malaria of all things.
August Wilhelm
Yeah. British
von
scientist
Hoffman.
or an Englishman. Yeah, he was trying to discover the cure for malaria, and he accidentally discovered the use of PPD.
Well, how was it? Was the malaria treatment done through the hair or on the scalp, or how'd that work?
So PPD in modern time and what its core use is for, it gives a richness, a depthness to pigmentation. And so by adding that in, it's how you cure a lot of discolorization. And I don't understand, I'm not a doctor, so I don't understand the full aspects of malaria and how the treatments, you know, will benefit and things like that. But he was basically trying to create potency in the formula, and he discovered the darkening of pigmentation rather than discovering the potency in the dosage of the formula. And that's a very loose explanation. I'm not going to get into the medical science of it because I don't claim to be a medical nerd in that regard, but I'll very loosely say it that way. And if anybody wants to make a YouTube video on the science of that and the history of that, I will gladly watch it.
Right. Me too.
Link it in the description of our video and tag me in it. I will gladly watch your video if you care to make a whole thing on that.
And then
then later, after his discovery, it was modernized and popularized by another scientist, and that's how we still currently use it in modern day.
And that's what I was going to say. That's what we should probably end on because it's towards the end of our research. In 1907, just a few years ago, Eugene Schuler created the first synthetic dye for commercial purposes. What did he call it? I can't even say that word.
Let me see.
A-U-R-E-O-L.
No, it's pronounced Oriel, which is in modern day time what we call the company L'Oreal.
Oriel. Okay. And so
isn't that's the original birth of the company L'Oreal as we know it.
So he created the first synthetic dye, you say? Well, you don't say, Wikipedia or somebody says.
No, right. It's a combination of looking up, you know, the Googles, Wikipedias, hair articles, journals. I had fun. I always have fun doing research.
What's the significance of a synthetic dye over all this other stuff we were talking about? Like, was the malaria medicine not a synthetic dye or a synthetic option?
The cure for malaria was a synthetic was intended to be a synthetic option. Yeah, because so in medicine, I can tell you this much.
Go ahead. I'm sorry.
You have chemical medicine, and then you have homeopathic medicine.
Yep.
Homeo. That, you know, so those are the two types. There are some people that want to cure naturally. There are some people who want to cure chemically. So there's always been that argument, which one is better? And that's an opinionated argument that I'm not going to get into.
Okay.
When you look at our industry, you have the same argument.
With
Some
color.
people want to
Thanks
color
to all
their
the
hair.
chemicals.
Yeah, they want to color or style their hair as naturally or as organic as possible. And there are people who don't care. They want to color their hair, chemically. And the use of product in modern day now in a lot of the synthetics, especially in permanent hair color at its core purpose is designed to diffuse and or the language and the definition is important. It's designed to diffuse and or remove natural melanin to make room for artificial pigmentation. If you don't use permanent hair color and you're using more of a natural or more of a true organic based hair color or a henna based hair color, those generally speaking are considered either semi or demi permanent colors. They don't last as long. They don't permanently affect the natural pigmentation in the hair, or at best, they only stain the surface of the hair.
Mm.
So it combines with your natural melanin. It doesn't remove or replace your natural melanin with something artificial. And so how that reacts and how long that lasts really is the whole argument. Do you want it to last for a couple of shampoos? Do you only want it to last for a week or two? Do you really want it to last for a month or two? Or do you want it to last until it grows out? And this is where the synthetic colors were developed from. This is where the whole argument about the combination of ammonia with hydrogen peroxide
You might
versus
be going too deep into a color class now.
no, but I mean, this is the whole argument of all these modern day things of what we argue about nowadays. It was all born from stuff like this,
Yeah. Oh, I
We
find
use
it
it
very,
cosmetically.
very interesting, but I want you to save it for a color
Oh, sure.
episode.
But yeah, how we can wrap up is this: the origins of hair and how we use it in modern time
Yeah.
is the evolution of where it historically was used, whether it was for a religious purpose, a political purpose, a class purpose, or a belief purpose for groups of people. Just like hair color was used in classifying wartime or jobs or just actually still in
Are you
addition to
doing?
religious beliefs as well.
Is your hair colored black because you're doing it for the same reason as Cleopatra?
Don't look as good as she ever will.
Are you trying to class up?
I'm definitely trying to fight Papa Time. I do not want to be defeated by age. I am vain in that regard, and so I do color my face and I do color my hair.
Do you know I have not colored for my last 3 haircuts, so I'm starting to look a little grayer than usual. This is getting close to my natural. I'm ready to color. I think maybe people can tell me in the comments, should I color? Should I go back to colored hair? I have people that will comment on videos and say both. The gray looks so good. And then some people will be like, don't do it. You look so young. Don't start looking old. Keep that hair colored, Bernard.
That's the whole thing, right? And we mask it with words. You look so distinguished with the gray hair.
Younger and better.
You're right, and that's the whole thing. It's
some people like the older look. So right, it's all opinion.
It's all opinion. And at the end of the day, you got to do it for what feels good for you, what feels right for you. You should be a conformist and you should be a nonconformist by conforming to how you want to look.
I was going to say, what looks best to me is what the most people like. Because when I get more compliments, I feel better. That's the most honest opinion. Isn't that why we all do what we do? How we dress. That's why I don't eat on screen anymore. No, I'm just kidding. Because of the comments. Sometimes I'm rebelling and I'm eating anyway.
And you're starving.
Yeah. I forgot to put any food here today, so I have not eaten through Facebook or YouTube today. I have all the pretzels are in the other room. But right, so we dress, we shave or not shave, or we wear that hair around our mouth like you do, or color or not color and cut our styles to fit in or rebel. That's the bottom line, right? We're trying to fit
That's what
into
it
a
comes
group
down to. So we
or
would
rebel.
love to hear why you guys do what you do, and for what purpose, and some of your opinions on it, because it's a fun topic. And man, it's really cool trying to look this stuff up if you're into history. So yeah,
And
that's
why
what
do
we
you
got
think
for you.
RJ wears his hair the way he does? He just walked through here. I think he's trying to fit in somewhere, but we won't say where.
Yeah, right.
Goodbye, everyone.
Thanks for watching. We'll catch y'all next week.